Mindy, I will let you take it away.
Thanks, Bree. Hi, everyone. I am Mindy Avitia. I am the Senior Events and Community Impact Manager here at Mighty Citizen. I've been with Mighty Citizen for under 3 years, just under 3 years. I'm in my third year at the agency. And, we're talking about snafus today. So, one of my biggest snafus as the senior events person here at Mighty Citizen was one time I flew into the wrong airport for an event. So, it was not great, but I'll turn it over to Andy.
Thank you, Mindy. My name is Andy Fabian. I'm a copywriter here at Mighty Citizen. My title is much smaller than Mindy's, but that's okay. I've been here for just over 2 years. I've been writing professionally for 7. I started off as a magazine editor. The biggest snafu that I struggle to overcome all the time, at least in my first drafts, is saying something in 30 words when I should be saying it in 7. So that's the snafu that I try to overcome every day in my work. And I'm coming to you live from Sarasota, Florida, where it is sunny and quite cool outside. A friendly introduction or reminder for those who maybe are joining us for the first time. We are Mighty Citizen, the improvement agency. We help mission-driven organizations increase their impact and improve their world through strategic thinking, engaging creative, and digital transformation. And we consider mission-driven organizations to be associations, nonprofits, educational institutions, and government agencies. In short, what animates our work is the fact that we believe your work improves the world, and so we want to improve you. And to kick off that improvement, we are going to kick it off with our first snafu of the day, and I will hand it over to Mindy for that.
Thanks, Andy. So, jumping right in, snafu number one, you overlook young audiences. And so, I want to have a little caveat here. I know that this is a blanket statement, and there are some folks on the call that work for colleges and universities whose job it is to focus on younger audiences. We understand that, but we also see in a lot of mission-driven organizations that this is quite common. And sometimes we end up looking like Steve Buscemi from 30 Rock. I think what a lot of organizations get wrong is that they have to do the trendy things that make them connect with the younger generations. But honestly, sometimes that just kind of makes us look like Steve's here. So instead of looking like this, you can talk to your coworkers, get their insight. Getting in touch with Gen Z audiences starts really with looking inward, looking in your organization and connecting and supporting your younger team members' growth. I'm a millennial, and I'll admit that some of my Gen Z coworkers and staff and colleagues really surprise me day in and a day out. I got my own biases and assumptions, and they're constantly being challenged by my coworkers, and I love it. Um, but how do we connect with younger generations? Right? Like when we've been in the workforce for over a decade, we're used to some of these institutional ways, but we really have to connect with them at a different sort of level that doesn't have to be jumping on TikToks or anything like that. An example I have is the 529 College Fund right now. They're now eligible for professional certification. So if you're an association with a professional credential, you can create marketing plans and campaigns for folks who have these 529 accounts, right? And let them know that they have other options for those funds than traditional colleges and universities. And then for universities on the call, y'all can be more competitive and show that unique value with the degree programs. Connecting with younger audiences doesn't have to look like a dancing weatherman, doesn't have to look like making TikToks that take too long and too many resources, but it really can be about understanding the needs of the younger audiences that you're serving and provide that value. So let's look at some stats. The oldest Gen Z is about 28 right now. So we're not talking high school students anymore. These are professionals who have likely been in the workforce for a few years. They have experience, they have insight. Maybe some of them have a little bit of back pain. And there's a stat here that's really important for mission-driven organizations, especially, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone on this call, that about over 3/4 of Gen Z care about social impact when it comes to the brands and businesses they support and buy from. I would say they're a savvy bunch, right? They're digitally innate. They know how and where to find information quickly to suss out any misalignment. from marketing and operations. But mission-driven marketers have a unique opportunity and an advantage here. You can partner with brands who maybe need some philanthropic support to bolster that social impact piece to connect with younger audiences, and you can kind of get a kickback in return. And then here's another interesting one that I thought was unique. 36% worry tech will impact their relationships. So a lot of times we're being bombarded with all of these online digital solutions, and younger audiences really thrive and look for those analog, more organic, authentic connections, like even in-person events. So let's talk about when the snafu happens. So this happens when you're jumping on trends without using data-informed decision making. Mighty Citizen will always talk about the research and the data, doing that first. And then you don't include or consult younger staff in that decision making. And then you focus a little bit too much on the now and not in the future of your organization, right? Thinking about younger audiences, Gen Z, maybe even Gen Alpha, if it's appropriate, really is a future-proofing technique for your nonprofit, association, college institution, whatever it is, your mission-driven organization. So let's talk about fixing it fast. Research, I said it before, social media, events, the social impact places. Where are your audiences and what are they looking for at those places? And then one that I'm a really big proponent of is including them, not just asking for their opinions or saying, hey, is this what the kids are doing these days? I don't know, but really including them in advisory committees, even board leadership if it's an opportunity. And if it's not, an advisory committee is a great opportunity to have them on board, give them that autonomy. All right, snafu number 2.
Thank you, Mindy. Yes, for snafu number 2, we have you suffer from the curse of knowledge. Let's take a look at what the curse of knowledge means in practical terms. The curse of knowledge is when you know a lot about a topic and you assume others have the same knowledge. What seems obvious to you, you assume is obvious to others. Let's take a quick look at what the snafu looks like in action. So this is an actual landing page for an actual product that was launched a year or two ago. It's called the AI Pin. You see there, it says starting at $699. You'll notice that there's not much text on this landing page or homepage. You'll see that there's no indication of how big the AI Pin is, what it does, what makes it cool, how it improves anyone's life, what value it has. So this is an example of the curse of knowledge. The makers of the AI Pin know everything about the AI Pin, but they forgot that we don't. So let's look at some other ways that the curse of knowledge shows up for organizations. So as I just said, with the AI Pin homepage, you forget to talk about the basics of your organization and offerings early and often, especially on things like the homepage. Another way we see it show up a lot is when you use too much jargon. You're sort of gatekeeping for maybe your very specific audience, and you forget that maybe sometimes you want to invite other people into your space that might not know what all those words mean, or they might not really have any interest in seeing them because they use them all the time in their work. Another one is you write above an 8th grade reading level on key web pages, again, like the homepage, but also emails and other key landing pages. As we all know, reading levels on average are not extraordinarily high, but even when your audiences are very highly educated, writing at an 8th grade or maybe a 9th grade reading level still helps you deliver the value and the meaning of your work more quickly. And we're all pressed for time, which we'll get into in another snafu. And then one that we see a lot, especially with associations, is when you use the initialism or acronym of your organization without ever spelling it out. When someone lands on your page and they have to dig around for what the AAURFZTS all stand for, it's just kind of a big time suck, and it makes them less likely to linger on that page. So here's how you can fix it fast. You want to make sure you're regularly talking about the most basic aspects of your organization regularly, not just who you are and what you do, but the value you add. part of my job as a copywriter is to take the messaging platform from our clients and make sure that there are 5 or 6 ideas that I'm hitting at least one of in everything that I write for them. I want to make those points repeatedly in lots of different words and lots of different ways. So make sure that you're hitting those core ideas often. You want to explain things in simple terms. And again, this isn't just a function of your audience's ability to read. It also challenges you to really think very clearly about how you can distill the core value of what you do in the simplest terms possible. And then, of course, try and run your content by someone who is a total noob, who has no idea what your association is or what kind of work you do. If they have a really, really hard time understanding and feeling oriented to what your mission is, it's probably a little bit too complicated to put, again, on very sort of key items like your homepage, key landing pages, your description on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So make sure that it's easily understood by people who have no idea what you do.
All right, snafu number 3, your social media is not valuable. Social media now is the new search engine. So more and more people are turning to social instead of Google or even ChatGPT to find things. And one really unique stat is that YouTube is the second highest search engine after Google. So social as a search connects people directly to the things that they're searching for. People can see it directly in context, right? So, for example, if you're a nonprofit addressing a certain issue, or an association, member-based organization offering certifications, or you're a university with degree programs, think of your social as a tool for search. What answers can you give to people to give to people search queries? What about your cause, your membership, or programs are people searching for? What keywords are they searching? How does your content answer those questions? And Bree can share in the chat some social listening tools that can help you do that. But this is one quick win that I think. My role at Mighty Citizen is in the brand marketing department. So I'm often looking at ways I can connect and we can connect with mission-driven marketers like y'all on this call right now. And I use Instagram because, again, as an ancient millennial, it's my favorite social media of choice. But other generations are looking at TikTok and even Snapchat. A little fun fact is I talk to my 20-something-year-old brothers only via Snapchat. I wouldn't even talk to my brothers if that didn't exist. So people are really existing within these platforms for more than just the social media aspect, right? They're talking to their friends, they're connecting. But anyway, since mission-driven marketers are our audience, I like to search social media to see what's the top trending reels, posts, audio, etc. So it can inform our content planning. It's a real low-hanging fruit way to get the top trends and really scroll and see. Whitney, is how you communicate with your teenager. I mean, we got to meet them where they're at, right? But even if you don't have the capacity to always create social content, keeping your finger on the pulse by searching what your audiences are searching for can be a good start. And like I said, Bree shared some social listening tools in the chat for y'all to look. And this is just, a little highlight of my search queries that I find very interesting. And so this snafu happens when we get very little engagement online and on social media. We try to appeal to everyone, and therefore our social is for no one. An example I really like to use is Blippi. I don't know, for the parents of young children on the call, he's a YouTube personality for kids, but his social media is only geared towards parents, right? 3, 4, 5-year-olds are not supposed to be on social media, so he can't and shouldn't gear his content towards them. So I think it's a really stark example of how that team knows that social is for parents and it's for that community, and therefore all the content is geared towards that community. And then the third one is that you only talk about yourself when you on social, right? If you're asking for money and donations, if you're asking for memberships, if you're talking about the things that you do, again, meeting people where they're at and what value do they want to see from you. Think about the ways that you consume social media. It's not really to look for ways that other people are doing things or other organizations are doing things. You're really doing it just to connect or laugh or something like that, or get some insight and aha moments. So just always keep that at the forefront of your mind when creating social content. So how are we going to fix it fast? I talked a little bit about it, but identify who your social is for and what they're searching for, right? It's okay to say my Instagram or my Facebook or my LinkedIn is only for X audience. Give them something to search for, right? Answer the question with your content. And then if it's not working, if you're not getting a lot of engagement and people's capacity and bandwidth is just so stretched thin, especially in this climate that we live in, it's okay to leave, even if it's a big one like Facebook or Instagram. It's okay to leave. Your audiences will understand. If they're not there, they're not there, and they don't even really care. So let me go on to the next one. Hand it over to Andy.
Thank you, Mindy. Yes, snafu number 4. You don't know who your real competition is. Let's take a quick look at an infographic here of an internet minute. So all of these numbers and figures are to give you an idea of how much content is consumed and produced and created on the internet every minute. The one that I find especially staggering is the 43 years of streaming content that is consumed in every internet minute. So what this means is you're marketing in a crowded room, in a loud, crowded room. This is the challenge that you have to think about overcoming. That doesn't mean ignore your competing associations or universities or nonprofits, but understand that your audiences have a lot of stuff that they're trying to filter out, and we've become extremely good at filtering things out. We know how to scroll past ads without even having them blip on the radar. So when you understand that you're battling this very large monster, you're encouraged to maybe think a little bit bigger and be less inclined to fear that you're maybe annoying your audience. So let's take a look at how this snafu shows up for a lot of organizations. The biggest one is just not delivering enough content. So for social media, 3 to 4 posts per week is a really good place to start. For emails, it's 1 to 3 times a week. Emails also have the highest ROI. By far, it's like 30 to 40% versus, like the 5% or under for a lot of other channels. Another issue is you're not speaking loudly enough on your best channels. And so sometimes in an effort to make sure that we're on every channel, we don't realize that we're missing opportunities on the ones that are sort of like doing the most work for us. So if you're getting a ton of engagement on Instagram, it's okay to drop a few posts a week on LinkedIn, for example, and just really focus on Instagram because that's where you're getting the bulk of your engagement. And then, of course, the other snafu is just organizations use boring graphics or dry language. And so it's a missed opportunity, again, to sort of stand out and make a louder noise, make a bolder noise. So let's go ahead and see how we can fix it fast. The first is just to internalize the idea that you need to fight relentlessly for attention, okay? Make sure that your cadences are right and try to stay up to date on the ever-evolving best practices. They do change pretty frequently, so every 6 months, just give it a quick Google search, subscribe to the HubSpot newsletters or the MailChimp newsletters. They're fantastic resources. Of course, you can also subscribe to ours. To help stay up to date on how much you're supposed to be publishing when it comes to your content. And then, of course, you should be tracking the performance of your content, okay? Look at what works, whether it's a channel or a content type, and do a lot more of that, which I already mentioned in the previous one. Really make sure that you're highlighting and emphasizing what's already working. And then, of course, take measured creative risks that can help your content stand out. We are battling the very, very large monster that is the internet minute. And so you've got to remember that and let it compel you to take some measured creative risks in all of your content.
Yeah. Snafu number 5. You aren't on podcasts. All right. I don't want eye rolls here. I know, but a quick little poll in the chat. who has listened to a podcast in the last week? Just like a quick me have, if you want to put the podcast that you love. All right. Okay, okay, I love it. So I think that it's a good indication that people love podcasts. 42% of Americans have listened to a podcast in the past month. That is my favorite podcast, a little like plug in there because I love them so much. But there is a podcast your audiences listen to about your industry. I promise you. Um, people like to consume media on the go. They listen while they're driving, exercising, doing dishes, maybe playing with their kids, which is me. Um, they they really want to multitask, and podcasts give them a great opportunity to do that, right? So let's talk about the snafu and how it happens. Obviously, you aren't on podcasts. But another one is that you don't listen to podcasts relevant to your industry. Now, I listen to all kinds of podcasts, but I make it a point to listen to nonprofit, mission driven, association, higher ed marketing podcasts so that I know the conversations. I listen to professionals talking about the issues that are impacting y'all the most so we can do our jobs better here at Mighty Citizen. And then the third one is that you underestimate the influence, right? I think you saw how many people here listened to a podcast in the past week alone. That's pretty telling. And you're not competing so much for that internet minute when you're listening to a podcast. So let's talk about some ways that we fix it fast. One, I said it already, find a podcast that's relevant to you and to your industry, whether it's your industry as a whole. So there's like fundraising ones, there's membership-based organizations one, there's higher ed-based ones, or find it specific to your niche. If it's just marketing, if it's just, or I'm sorry, if it's like your cause that you're supporting in your mission or the trade or profession that you have, as an association. So and then pitch yourself as a guest. If you don't have the budget to invest in advertising, pitch yourself as a guest on the show. You're a thought leader in your space, or you work with subject matter experts at your organization. So pitch you or yourself to speak on them. And then a little nugget of information that I really like, there is a lot of podcast collaboration communities. I personally like one on Facebook. It's kind of the only reason why I have Facebook now is for the interactive communities on it. But you could also do it through industry forums where people who host podcasts are looking for new, unique guests. And you could post saying, hey, here's my expertise, or here's my company's expertise, or industry organization's expertise, and then people will say, yep, we would love to hear you speak. So it's kind of a different approach, and you could kind of cover more ground in one area. And then if you have budget for it, consider advertising. That's also a really great option. We all know, I know BetterHelp is on almost every single podcast I've ever listened to. They definitely got a podcast advertising budget. And then finally, to fix it not so fast, consider starting a podcast. Mighty Citizen will never tell you to start a podcast without doing the research and making sure that there's an opportunity in the market to do that. But if you have the time, capacity, and stuff to do that, if there is opportunity in the market, if someone's not already doing it, consider starting a podcast yourself.
Thank you, Mindy. Snafu number 6, your branding is inconsistent. This is one of my favorite ones, or maybe one of my least favorite, depending on what condition a brand is in. So let's look at a really good example of a polished, consistent brand. We're looking at some screen grabs here from MailChimp. We've got their Instagram grid on the left. We've got their homepage in the top right. And then in the middle, we've got their YouTube video feed. And in the bottom right, we've got their LinkedIn profile. So a few things to kind of point out here. That font with the serif, so where it says turn emails and SMS into revenue, that's their sort of core brand font. You can see it in several Instagram posts. You can see it on the homepage. You can see it in the YouTube feed in that little banner. You can see their little yellow monkey logo and the yellow color in a whole bunch of their posts. Again, on their YouTube feed, their homepage, their LinkedIn profile. They're these little signals that tell you very clearly that you're looking at something from MailChimp. You always know you're looking at something from MailChimp when you see something from MailChimp. They have a very consistent, strong brand. Let's look at a bad example. So this is from a manufacturer of titanium bicycles. It's relevant to me because I'm shopping for a titanium bicycle. If you take a look at their Instagram grid there on the left, you'll notice there's just no cohesion to the photos. There's no consistent photo treatments. Some are in black and white and super high contrast. Some are in color. Some are just bike parts. Some are bike tubes. There's one of a landscape for some reason. When you look on the right, you see their hero section from their homepage, and you see the banner from their Facebook page. The photos are different, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it just seems like a strange choice because they could have just used the same photo. The fonts are different. They say something different. One says legendary titanium bicycles. The other one says lock-in exclusive introductory pricing, which is fine. I would probably prefer that on the Facebook banner as well. And you'll see also that the Linsky word mark in the top right there on the home page is very different than the badge that's on the Facebook profile. So we've got different logos, we've got different yes, we've got different logos, we've got different fonts, we have inconsistent photo treatments. It all kind of makes me feel like they're either too busy building bikes to care about their marketing, which is a best case scenario, or what's more likely for me, especially as a branding snob, is that I just feel like they're not trustworthy, they're inconsistent, they're maybe a little bit absent-minded. Is their service going to be any good? Have they really worked through a lot of core functions of their sort of sales pipeline, of their manufacturing pipeline? It just makes it a little bit harder for me to trust them, which is especially problematic because titanium bicycles are higher end. It's a high-end product that's not really doing a lot to endear me to them. So let's look at some other ways that this shows up for organizations. So as we just talked about, it happens a lot when you use different colors, fonts, and images all the time on every different platform. Try and stick to some core fonts, some core colors, the same logo treatments, same photo treatments. It happens a lot when you don't have enough quality control or it's too dispersed within your organizations. This happens a lot, especially in higher education, where every college at a university has their own website. Every department has their own website. They have all kinds of different content moderators and content governance protocols. The brand guidelines aren't socialized enough, which brings us to that third one. Oftentimes, organizations either don't have brand guidelines or they're not appropriately and comprehensively socializing them with all of the people that are creating content on behalf of the organization. So let's talk about how to fix that fast. One way is to create branded templates. So this is especially good for social media and for emails. If you just kind of have some core templates for social media posts or for email header images or even for email kind of format and structure, it makes it a lot easier for things to look consistent and for you to kind of be sending those clear visual markers regularly. Make sure you're adhering to brand guidelines if you have them. So again, same colors, same fonts, consistent photography, correct logo usage and padding. Make sure you're not skewing your logo or using an older logo. And then if you want to fix it not so fast, you can create comprehensive brand guidelines. Now that's a little bit of a heavier lift. We do have a toolkit that can help you with that, that we'll send along in the follow-up email after this webinar. Or you can also consider a rebrand. A lot of times when brands have been around for maybe 5, 6, 7 years, you start to accumulate a long list of little tweaks and changes that every subsequent graphic designer or marketing manager has kind of brought in to sort of throw their own stamp on things. And so you can sort of accumulate a lot of bad habits. And so a rebrand is a great way to just start completely fresh. It reanimates your own work. It gets everyone else internally a little bit excited, and it can get your audiences excited when you have something new to unveil. It's like getting a new haircut or a new wardrobe. So it gives your audience something a little bit more exciting to look forward to.
Yeah. And Bree also shared the toolkit in the chat as well. It will be in the follow-up, but also if y'all want to check it out right now. Okay, so number 7, you don't use webinars as leads. This is one of my personal favorites as the event person here at Mighty Citizen, but I am going to do another little interactive poll here. Quick poll. Which coffee shop are you going to go to? Are you going to coffee shop A or coffee shop B? Curious to know what y'all think. Whoa, everyone's going to B. Okay. Y'all are mission-driven people. I love it so much. I kind of expected this, even though it derailed the whole point of Snafu, but I love y'all. It is more beautiful and it has really nice latte art, and it's probably like oat milk, almond milk, and then like cashew milk, you know? But so let's just pretend everybody wanted the free cup of coffee over the pretty latte. But I know that that's not necessarily true. But in this instance, more value is placed on free than discounted. So sometimes organizations have paywalled events and webinars that offer members or donors or students even a discount rate. And this is less appealing than a free one, obviously, right? You're going to join the free webinar, which y'all are on right now, over that discounted rate webinar. And this is a lead magnet. It'll allow you to bring in new faces, new people, and then it's your job, or, you know, development's job or member services job, someone else's job, to hopefully nurture them and gain a new member, a new donor, a committed student, etc. So for nonprofit organizations raising funds and individual donations, you all have a mission and vision of the world you want to see. So there's companies, public agencies, etc., that are talking about these issues. And I know so many nonprofit leaders who sit on panels and talks and give presentations, and they're on webinars and they're talking about the issues that are impacting the people that they serve or the missions that they serve. And often these organizations don't necessarily know who's in the room that they're talking to. They have an idea of the people, but they don't walk away with a hard list with contact information. And that's what's really important, because it can ask the partners where you're speaking. If it's at a conference or an event, ask them for the list of attendees. You know, you're offering your thought leadership. So if you can exchange that for a list of attendees to grow your list, to grow your leads, to grow the potential to steward new and nurture new audiences and people, right? So let's talk about when this snafu happens. So you only offer paid webinars and events, or you only offer your most valuable ones for money. So often you want really, really valuable stuff to be free, because again, you want to prove that you're valuable. And then you only speak on webinars or in-person events, but like I said, you don't know who's in the audience. And then finally, if you're a college, university, you don't offer virtual info sessions that are really easy for prospective students to look and see, you know, all of these different deadlines, financial aid information, all of the things that they need to know can happen succinctly in one place and obviously for free. And so how are we going to fix it fast? You add free webinars open to everyone and make sure that they're very valuable to the person, that they're walking away with information that is making them go, aha, or a eureka moment, or something, some little nugget of information that keeps them thinking about what they learned and tying that back to your organization. So that's how you make it valuable to the prospects. And you know, we say this often, don't just tell them your value, don't just talk about, you know, what you do, the services you offer, how your publications can help people, or how you're helping people in the world. Actually show them through doing it and providing that value to them. Passing it along to the next one.
Thanks, Mindy. Snafu number 8, your images don't have effective alt text. What is alt text? For those who don't know, alt text is the brief description added to an image for users who are visually impaired. Alt text is read by screen reader software and applications for the users who are visually impaired so that they can hear it. Alt text is also read by search engines to understand the image's content and context. It's not just an SEO boost or a moral obligation. In a lot of cases, there are also ADA compliance considerations. So I want to read some alt text to you here that I think is pretty good and pretty fun. I want you to try and guess what meme it is describing. A small cartoon dog wearing a little hat sits at a table, happily drinking coffee. Despite the table his coffee cup is on being on fire, as is the foreground, and the background, and the wall, and the rest of the room. Smoke billows across the top of the image, but this is fine. It's all fine. That's it, exactly. Looks like some of you got it. So that's an example of good, relevant, perhaps a little bit long alt text, but it tells you what's going on in the image, and more importantly, it captures the relevance, which is that everything is not fine, but you have to pretend it is. So let's talk about how this snafu happens. Pretty simple. A lot of people just don't add alt text to images. A lot of organizations are just missing that opportunity. Maybe they don't have time or the know-how, and so they're just missing the opportunity to write alt text at all. Or for those organizations that are writing alt text, the alt text is perhaps a little bit too basic and not relevant enough to the content or the context. So let's talk about how to fix it. Obviously, first of all, use alt text whenever possible. Where there's an image, there's probably an entry for it. There are entries for it on social media. Most CMSs allow you to have alt text as well, and those are some of the key ones. You want to write alt text as if you were describing the image and its relevance to a friend over the phone. That's just a good way to kind of test yourself and test the value of your alt text and the efficacy of your alt text. And then the last thing I want to say is that alt text is a great low stakes use case for AI tools. A lot of CMSs and social scheduling platforms do have pretty serviceable alt text generators. It'll just be this little button somewhere in the publishing portal that'll allow you to add alt text to an image. I've used it. It's pretty serviceable. 10 to 15 seconds, it'll generate something. You proofread it, you add a few things, you maybe remove a few words, and voila, you have alt text very easily.
Okay, we're going to move a little bit faster now because we want to get through all 12 and give y'all some time for questions. So number 9, you don't personally celebrate members, donors, or students. We all want to be Ben from Parks and Rec here on their anniversary. So let's talk about when to celebrate. Celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, and renewal dates, degree and certification completion, and then major holidays, events, etc., if it's pertinent to your cause and organization. One example I really like here from CU Denver, a colleague shared with us, is that when a student commits to CU Denver, an alumni sends them a handwritten note welcoming to the school and what they can sort of expect, how they enjoyed their time on campus. And so it's just a really, really analog and authentic touch point. So let's talk about other ways that this snafu happens. It happens at the starting point. It happens when you're not capturing the data to know the milestones like renewals, birthdays, signups, or completions. So if you don't know someone's birthday, we can't wish them a happy birthday, right? So, and then obviously you're not personalizing communications. And this goes beyond just personalized tokens and emails that we're all used to these days. It really is about the true meaning of personalization, like a handwritten letter or a phone call or a text message or whatever. So how are we going to fix it fast? Don't just ask, right? Don't just ask for their donation. Don't just ask for their renewal. Don't just, often with associations, their renewal can just be a reminder to maybe even disengage sometimes. So you really want to celebrate them, congratulate them on a year of being a donor or a year of membership or they're completing their first year at college. So personalize those key communications like the renewals and donations. And then of course, we are always a proponent of writing personalized thank you cards. I'm sure there's a lot of development teams who are doing such great work here. And then finally, with their consent, celebrate publicly on social, at live events. Even if there's not necessarily a quid pro quo, just celebrate them so it's a nice little surprise, right?
Snafu number 10, you're ignoring Reddit. Let's look at some Reddit metrics. Reddit has 500 million monthly active users, so that's the 7th most popular website on the internet. On average, a user spends 10 minutes per visit on the site, which is 3 times longer than Instagram, and 82% of users are under the age of 50. So it's a very relevant, very highly visited website where people are spending a good amount of time each time they visit. More importantly, Google loves Reddit. And why does Google love Reddit? Because Reddit discussions and comment threads are extraordinarily relevant and extraordinarily specific. You can look up a comment thread that compares office chairs, bicycles, or like we have in the next example, the value of a graduate certificate versus a master's. And so a lot of times what's happening in Google search results is a Reddit thread, or in this case, Reddit threads are showing up right on that front page of search results because Google already knows how relevant it is. The exact words in the query are being used in these conversations on Reddit. And so it's a great way to kind of boost your SEO. And it's just kind of it's a place where you need to be and where you need to have a say in the conversations that are happening about your industry and your organization. So when does this snafu happen? Well, obviously it happens when you don't have a Reddit account, first and foremost. For those that do have a Reddit account, it happens when you don't meaningfully engage with the posts and comment threads relevant to your work or industry. And of course, it happens when you don't respond to criticisms of or misinformation about your industry or organization, either because you're too afraid or you're just not looking for where those conversations are happening. So how do we fix it fast? Well, obviously, make a Reddit account if you don't have one. Once you make that Reddit account, make sure that you are listening. Good or bad, Reddit users will tell you exactly how you are doing. Look around and answer questions. If you have thought leadership, industry leadership, if you have an answer that can really benefit your audience and someone is asking the question, that means they're your audience, answer that question. Or you can create your own subreddit and even lead the conversation, create the conversation. So that's another way that you can fix it fast.
All right, snafu number 11, you don't take a stand on key issues. I want major caveat alert right here. This is not an attempt to say that mission-driven organizations right now need to be inflammatory or even really participate in partisan politics. But I want to give you a completely made-up example that I pulled from. Okay, so let's pretend that this association existed and this AI-generated image isn't creepy at all and everything is spelled correctly, even though I put the prompts in right, I promise. So the National Society of Mom Brain Sufferers, of which I am a proud member, offers education, community for working parents and moms, a publication with helpful research tips, and services geared towards balancing it all. And obviously, funny parenting reels because we need those. They don't talk about political issues and they steer away from any sort of lobbying support of PACs, etc. But there is a new bill being proposed, this Brain Fog Research and Education Act of 2025, that would require official diagnosis of mom brain, physicians to ask about mom brain and report diagnosis to the government for research and data. And this could severely impact pre-existing conditions, insurability, and other potential harms with this data collection. So taking a stand against this bill could signal to this association's membership base that they're doing everything they can to protect parents and remain a resource for them. It's not really about taking a stance does not have to look like being overtly political or jumping into the noise of American partisan politics, which is crazy. So it simply means supporting your community and showing up where you can for them. If you're a 501c3 and don't lobby, there's obviously other organizations that you can partner with that can help push bills along that impact the people that you serve or the missions that you serve. So let's talk about when this snafu happens. You're trying to please all the people all the time. That just really doesn't work. The old Abe Lincoln quote says it best. And then you don't have a strategic direction of the particular stance, right? So your leadership has to get on board on how you react to community issues, because if there's misalignment at the top, then every single new thing that comes is going to be a little wonky. And then finally, you're over communicating and maybe jumping a little too quickly on the topics that may not be relevant to you, right? So maybe instead of shying away from some of these hot topics and inflammatory issues, you're diving into them, and maybe your audiences don't necessarily expect to hear that from you at all. So it's a little bit of a shock and jarring, and then that can have some negative consequences. So let's talk about how we can fix it fast. First, know what you stand for, right? Get on the same page, make sure that strategic direction and strategic stance is solidified and agreed upon. And don't avoid taking that stance in fear of alienating people, because if people turn away, we promise taking a stance will attract even more. And then here, I said it before, partnerships matter. Partner with other organizations, community-based organizations that can really help move that stance along and make sure that your audiences and your people are being taken care of. We're going to move on to number 12, and I'm going to welcome Bree back in here to introduce our 12th snafu.
Hello, thanks, Mindy. That was great, y'all. Thank you. So before we wrap it up, we have one final snafu that I'm very passionate about. So I asked if I could talk about it, and that is that you don't know how effective your marketing is. So we've seen this time and time again over the last 25 years of helping mission-driven organizations. So a couple years ago, we created a tool. So it is called the Mighty GPS. And before we head into questions, I will share it in the chat. Really encourage everyone to take that. It's a little health check for your marketing efforts. It takes around 6 or 7 minutes to take. It measures your marketing maturity across 6 different categories that kind of makes up the entire ecosystem of marketing. And once you finish the assessment, it'll give you a personalized report, and it with scores in it per category and an overall score. It gives you lots of great advice and recommendations and resources based on where you score for you to improve. If you've already taken it, I actually, while Mindy and Andy were talking, I looked at how many registrants have taken the GPS, and there's a decent amount of you, which I love to see. But a lot of you have taken it in 2023 or before then. So I really recommend taking it again. And you can compare or having other staff members take it, and you can all kind of get together and talk about your scores. It's a great barometer just to see what efforts you put in place may have paid off, which ones you still need to work on, or if you've never taken it before, it's a good place to start. It can help with buy-in too, because you'll have actual data showing you where you might need to work on some things. All right.
Thanks,
So, yeah, you're welcome. We are in the question portion here. Again, thank you everyone for joining. We have the QR code here. You can access more resources, but also everything that is on this page will also be emailed out tomorrow. And then we're going to be sending out, again, the recording as well. So let me see what questions. We do have a couple questions. I am going to grab them. The first is, what podcast do you recommend listening to? And I don't, if this person is still on, there's such a variety of podcasts. So I had jotted down some of the marketing ones that I do. But I don't know, Mindy, if you have any specific ones you would recommend either in any of our industries.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of it, but Julie Campbell's podcast is all about fundraising, and it brings on a lot of nonprofit organizations and nonprofit professionals, and they talk about communications, they talk about fundraising, they talk about all sort of issues related to development and marketing and comms for nonprofits. So um, it's Julie Campbell podcast. If you Google that, you'll find it. But
Yeah,
I'm blanking on the title of it actually.
yeah, I was gonna try to, I think it's just, oh, Nonprofit Nation.
Nonprofit Nation. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to post the GPS. The other ones that I did, I will copy and paste and put in the chat as well. So as a marketer, there's lots that I listen to. There's Marketing Millennials has ones. Honestly, if you search just marketing social media, you're going to find a ton. There's actually a specific one. It's like Confessions of a higher ed social media marketing manager. That's really interesting. There's CMO podcasts. There's yeah, lots of things that I would recommend there. Andy, any recommendations that you have?
I am a huge fan of the Carnegie Higher Ed podcast. They are like a big sort of audience research consultancy and advertising firm for in higher ed. And they have a fantastic podcast that just talks so much about issues around strategic enrollment management in higher ed. It's just a very well produced, very thoughtful podcast. I like that one a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll post that there too. All right, and another one is are you using alt text in social media? Question mark how, or is it just websites? Are you trying to include SEO?
I can feel that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually do use alt text in all the social media that I create for clients. I do use primarily this again those little AI generated tools in a lot of the social scheduling platforms that we use for clients. And of course, as with any AI output, you have to vet it, you have to read it, you have to make sure it's accurate. I'll make some tweaks here and there, shorten it, lengthen it, add some context. But yeah, I'm using it for all the social media images. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm posting, there's actually, we don't have an article on this, but there's a really good one on how to do it for all social media platforms that I'm going to post in the chat as well. And let me see. This last question, I'm not sure. I guess there's so many different variables, but I'll just ask. Somebody was asking how often you should advertise on a certain podcast. And I would assume that would be based on budget and audience and all sorts of things. So I don't, that might be hard to answer, a blanket answer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variables that need to be considered before you decide which certain podcast and how many ad placements you're buying and stuff. So,
Yeah, and what kind of advertising you're going to do. I mean, definitely if it's a first time, I would say you need to get your feet wet a little bit or try to see if you can talk to others in your industries that have done it and if they've seen success. I know that would be helpful.
mhm.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up here a few minutes early. I don't think any more questions came in through the chat either. So I think that is all. Thank you guys today for joining. And then Mindy and Andy, thank you so much.